When the television show Game of Thrones hit HBO in April 2011, it became an almost overnight success, cementing itself as a cornerstone of television and in many ways defining the cultural zeitgeist of the 2010s. In my anecdotal experience as someone whose young adult years were shaped by the show and the discourse surrounding it, there was hardly a single person I knew who wasn't talking about Game of Thrones, hosting watch parties for it, claiming a house allegiance, or just speculating on the next episode or season. It was everywhere. The show almost literally made an entire generation of people who otherwise wouldn't have cared about fantasy love it. And with the release of House of the Dragon in 2022 and now the coming of Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in 2025, it seems the television presence of the World of Ice and Fire is here to stay. Now this probably goes without saying, but we all know the books of course came first, at least some of them. George, please finish writing them, with A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin being published in 1996. But I think people forget just how much the show impacted even the sales of these books, because from 1996 to 2005, according to what I could find scattered on the internet, the books were only moderately successful bestsellers, selling around 5 million copies in the first 4 volumes. It was not until the show's release in 2011 and the release of the 5th book just a couple months later that the books really rocketed into popularity, with some estimates today showing around 100 million copies sold, making it one of the best-selling fantasy series ever. Now you would think, at least I would think, that a franchise with such commanding popularity as A Game of Thrones with multiple hit shows and hopefully a completed series of books eventually, there would be other excellent avenues to explore this series, like maybe with video games, I don't know. Well, to what has been my personal surprise over these last now 13 years, A Game of Thrones has remained almost entirely ignored by the video game industry, and outside of some mobile games like Game of Thrones Conquest, the most popular game to come out of this franchise was A Game of Thrones Season 1 by Telltale Games. A story which wasn't even finished because Telltale, initially postponing a second season of the game in 2017, ended up going out of business altogether in 2018, although technically they did come back under another company, but they haven't said anything about continuing the story. So what does this all mean? What am I yapping about? Well, I'm complaining, dear viewer, about this glaring void in the industry just ripe for the taking. Game of Thrones was once so popular that even pre-Skyrim Bethesda was approached about making an RPG, which they obviously declined, but why, in this near decade and a half, has no major or even small company tried to tackle even a corner of this massive world and bring to life that magic that captivated literally an entire generation? And with that question, I come to the crux of this video, what you all came here for and presumably clicked on the video for. Why, despite everything, the best Game of Thrones game is not a mobile or point-and-click adventure or some AAA studio product, but a fan-made mod. This, my friends, is AGOT, for Crusader Kings 2 and 3. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Crusader Kings is a grand strategy series which started in 2004 and is made by Paradox Development Studios in Sweden. In it, you assume the role of a medieval ruler, be it a count, a duke, a king, an emperor, or whatever regional specific flavoring of something that they have. Through this, you attempt to survive the years either by expanding or growing tall as your selected dynasty, from the shores of England to the Eurasian steppe and the jungles of India. It's basically like the medieval Sims, or at least it is now. That's the easiest comparison I can make. Now, the games we're worried about, Crusader Kings 2 and 3, came out in 2012 and 2020 respectively. We are concerned with these specifically because the mod that this video is dedicated to, AGOT, officially released for Crusader Kings 2 in May of 2012. I want to point out that Crusader Kings 2 came out in February, meaning that this mod was made in just a couple months. For the past 12 years now, this mod across 2 different games has been the only thing that has captured the spirit of the World of Ice and Fire's intrigue, politics, war, and just general magic. In a game where virtually everything is possible like Crusader Kings, AGOT shines. For this video, we'll largely focus on Crusader Kings 3, which I will henceforth call CK3 for brevity. I do this because while CK2 is arguably a more robust and feature-heavy game, as is its mod version of AGOT, it's also a lot harder on the eyes to a new player. It would be a lot like playing Game of Thrones The Spreadsheet if you've never experienced this kind of game before. CK3, on the other hand, is a much more visually streamlined game and is still being updated with DLCs, as is the mod itself, which currently seems to be updated every few months, having added parts of Essos earlier in the year, Dragons in August, and now with the promise of Landless Adventurers coming to the mod not long after its integration, I assume, with the DLC, Roads to Power. Players will soon be able to play as everything from a dragon-riding king to a lowly wandering hedge knight if they so wish, meaning AGOT has more promise than ever to be a living, breathing simulation of Westeros and beyond. Now, AGOT, even as it is right now, is huge. It's massive. It has the entirety of Westeros already included, with a host of unique assets and features on what I consider to be one of the most detailed maps of the world ever realized. Now, in this video, after briefly explaining how one would start a game in AGOT, I'll go across the world showing you the love and care put into it by the developers, and hopefully encourage you to give it a try for yourself with examples of my own experiences and things you can do within the game. I have videos talking about how to install mods, so if you own or purchase CK3 as a result of this video and you want to try AGOT, I would start there. For those of you who have never played Crusader Kings 3, I also won't be explaining the minute details or mechanics on how to play or anything like that. That's not what this video is about. What I will do is show you the world, show you how to start a game, and then you can discover everything else from there. Now, when you load up the mod for the first time, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. This will change depending on what version of the mod it is, since the recent update was involving dragons. That's why you see dragons on the screen now. When you hit new game for the first time, you'll see the various different start dates that you're allowed to play in. And within these start dates, you'll see the bookmarks, which are just these: the War of Ninepenny Kings, Robert's Rebellion, the Crowned Stag, all that stuff. So basically, the mod lets you play, as of right now, as of, what is it, September 2024. It lets you play from 82 AC to 284 AC. But relatively speaking, the stuff that would happen in the middle, like the Blackfire Rebellion, some of the other wars, the War of Five Kings, those things are not implemented into the mod yet. Beyond what you would click, it's basically just a sandbox game, so you're sort of doing whatever you want. The 82 AC one in particular is pretty light. However, there are versions and there are characters that you can play as that have their own quest lines, like Prince Daemon here has his own quest line, or if you go to 280 or 258 here, King Maelys Blackfire has his own quest line, which is quite good. He can turn one of his sons into a dragon if you get lucky enough. Aegon can also get a dragon at Summerhall, which is pretty exciting. If you're familiar with Game of Thrones, these are very cool characters to get a chance to play as for the first time. You obviously have Roger Rayne here in this start date as well, so you can play as the Raynes. This is the Robert's Rebellion start. This is probably, I would say, the recommended start, because you get a lot of different characters that most people at least familiar with the show are going to know, like Rhaegar, Robert, Eddard, Tywin. You know these characters, or at least you've heard of them. You've heard of the Mad King. This is what he looks like. You saw him on the thumbnail. But for the sake of this video, purely because I do want you to be able to see dragons as well, I'm actually going to start with the world during the Rogue Prince. So this is basically when Daemon is going down to the Stepstones. This will let me show you the world, but you'll also be able to see dragons. Just know, if we were to jump in here, there wouldn't be any dragons, because there's no dragons after the dance, which takes place not long after this period, but the dance is also technically not in the game, but there's a succession system. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things. Let's just click go. Let's click Daemon so that you can see an example of the quest system that'll pop up as soon as we start the game. So as you can see, we've loaded into the game. We have the Rogue Prince's War, which is a little blurb. This will basically start the quest chain down here for Daemon. He has a variety of different things you can do for his quest line, but it starts off with him taking over the Stepstones. As you can see, he's fighting Crab Feeder. As you can also see, he has his sword, Dark Sister, which is an item within the game, so you can read a little blurb about that. And he also has his dragon, Caraxes, the Bloodworm. So we're just going to say no Crab Feeder can stop me, and the game will not go automatically, so we don't have to worry about that. So I can show you this map. So if we zoom out here, you can see the map. This is the whole table. And because of the start date that we've selected, there's actually a unique map. As you can see, Dark Sister is here on the table. We have some dragons. We have the Velaryon and we have the Targaryen. You can kind of see banners in the background, basically just some table flavor. You don't really look at the table too much. As you can see, Essos is all on the map, but it's not filled out yet. We don't even have Bravos yet, but I would assume those things are going to be coming in time. A lot of nice little details though on the map. You can basically assume that this is like Daemon's war table, right? And then you can see we have like Steffan Darklyn and Harold Westerland, some of the Kingsguard from the big book. Anyway, a lot of little details here, but we got a lot to cover. So let's just talk about the map first of all. So if we zoom way in here, we'll go down to King's Landing. You guys are pretty familiar with that. If we go down to King's Landing here, you can see, let me get rid of this. You can see that it's been perfectly rendered here so that it's like a living, breathing object on the map for you to not only look at, but actually participate with. So if I get rid of this, you can see that the city is broken up into different districts, which are ruled by various people and give various bonuses to those people. So for example, the Red Keep is like its own unique building, gives you various bonuses. And this is one of the things I love about AGOT so much, is that all of these areas they've taken the time and the care to make them feel unique. So if I switch characters here, and I switch over to Vizzy T, the boy, he's obviously the king of Westeros, and if I go to his throne room, you can see that he's sitting upon the Iron Throne. So there are also unique throne rooms, which I love about this, and I want to show you a couple of those actually. So let's come over here. This one's one of my favorite ones for the Tyrells, which will come down here. We'll zoom on into Highgarden. We'll zoom on in. We got the maze that they have outside of their walls. You can see their sept on here. Really beautiful. We can zoom out a little bit. And then we'll go here to the royal court, and as you can see, we have the oaken seat, the oaken chair, which is this really gorgeous, which I actually don't even think he's got equipped. Yeah, the oaken stump, once the living throne of House Gardner, said to have been planted by Garth the Green himself, so it's now there. Has this absolutely gorgeous throne room with the Gardner hands up here from when it was originally built, when the Gardners ruled the Reach, which is such an interesting period. For some reason, the Honey Holt is by itself in that map. That was quite odd. Anyway, but you have things like that, and I I just love the general flavor of each region, that they did take the time to make them feel unique. Because if you come over here to like the Reach, for example, you can see Golden Grove actually has golden trees. You can see, let's see where else we got. Obviously, Dorne is very deserty, as we know. Dorne is quite desertous. We have Sunspear right here, this beautiful, beautiful model here of Sunspear. It's absolutely gorgeous. But if you come over more to the western side, where the Danes are, you can see that it is like it is in canon, a lot more green, a lot more mountainous. It's very close to the Reach. We have the Starfall. I was about to say Sunspear again, but we have Starfall, the castle. We actually have a Sword of the Morning here, and you can see him wielding Dawn. If you're a fan of the lore of Game of Thrones, as you can see, Dorne is not part of the Seven Kingdoms because they weren't yet. That's a huge thing, right? If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, the map of this alone is probably going to be enough to make you go insane, because the attention to detail, the little things, the little extra buildings, basically what you call them. They're like economic buildings, but like the eerie, like having all of these things that are not only on the map just as eye candy, but actually interactable and important pieces, like the twins up here. It matters, right? It adds that element of grandeur to the map. Like you have like Seaguard Castle here. And this is without even considering the fact that there are submods which add more features. Like for example, there's a submod for Harrenhal, which lets you rebuild it, which is insane. And I've done that before as House Strong, and it's quite a lot of fun. But we're not just here to talk about the map. Obviously, we have a little bit of Essos, we got a little bit of Westeros, and there's a lot of different faiths in the map. And as you can see, we have the Faith of the Seven, but we also have the Old Gods, and we also have all of the faiths of Essos, or at least some of the faiths of Essos that are here so far. And they've also taken the time to think about the different cultures and think about the different bonuses that these cultures would have, which is a feature of Crusader Kings 3 anyway. But even in the north, which is not just Northmen, we have like the Barrowmen, we have the Wolfwoods, we have obviously the General Northmen, and we have the Harbormen where the Manderleys are. And if we zoom on in, you can see White Harbor is this absolutely gorgeous looking city. I really, really love this one. I will say Winterfell is probably the least exciting looking one, but I mean, canonically, it's not that great. And where would I be? Where would I be if I didn't show you the wall? Let's come up here to the wall real fast. There's Castle Black. We got the wall. We have the north, which is very frigid, not actually that exciting. Kind of cool. The Fens probably have my favorite area far to the north because they just have all these mounds up here, which look quite nice. And then their king wears that nice, I think it's dragon glass crown. We'll come on down here to the Iron Islands too, since I've just been showing you everything. We got Pike here. Absolutely wonderful stuff. So, unique cultures, unique faiths, unique assets all over the map for every major holding at the very least, like at least the capital, and then some of the other castles too. Like even Essos has its own, not all of them, but Tyrosh does, Mir does, and Pentos does. So those are also on the map, and they provide absolutely insane bonuses. So let's say you wanted to play, because I showed you at the beginning of the video that you can sort of play as whoever you want. So I click Daemon, right? But you don't have to do that. Like let's just say I went into observe mode. I could pick any character on this map, and you can do that through that screen I showed you on the left corner. I'll show it on screen now. There's a play as any character button. You could just click that button, and then you can play as any character, and it'll give you basically this map is what you'll be looking at. And you can essentially just zoom in and be like, okay, well, I want to play as the Greyjoys, or maybe you don't want to play as the Greyjoys specifically. You want to play over here as the Drums. I want to play as House Drum. I would do this. Now, normally it wouldn't be this screen. It would look kind of like this. So I would be like, okay, I'm going to play as the Drums. So I'm going to play on Oldwick, and now I'm playing as the Drums, and I can do whatever I want with them, from building them up. I can go raiding if I want to. Raise all his raiders. I don't know how many troops he's got. He's got 1,906, so I could try to come over here maybe to Essos, because I can't really raid within the Seven Kingdoms. It doesn't usually let you, or Dorne. And I can raid, and I can try to build up a lot of money, which is quite a fun thing to do as the Ironborn, I must say. You can also go north, but there's not much up there to really take. It's not that exciting. This is the beauty, the freedom of this mod is the reason that I think it feels the most like Game of Thrones. Like if you end up as the king and you have, your own council. So if we look here, we can see the Liege's council. It has his council's court. These people, sometimes they will not have your best interest at heart, and people will be gunning for you to essentially take this throne from you. And there are, like I said a little bit ago, especially in this start date, we have Rhaenyra here. There is an option as Daemon, who should be down here somewhere in the Stepstones. There he is. He has the option to rebel against his brother, either before or after he dies, and try and take the throne from Rhaenyra, which is quite an interesting feat. She also does have her dragon Syrax, in case you were wondering. All the dragons, more or less, are in here. Like we have Meleys, who is ridden by Princess Rhaenys over here in Dragonstone, who is going to be coming down soon to join the war in the Stepstones. There's just a lot of features, right? A lot of things. So, for example, in the newest update, we obviously got dragons, but in the newest update to CK3 in general, we got landless adventurers. Now, let's just say I wanted to be a landless adventurer in this world. That update is going to be coming, I would assume, pretty shortly after the DLC drops for everybody. I would give it like a month or two, just because it's a lot to implement. So let's just say I wanted to do that. I'm going to come over here to the Reach, right? And I would make my little party. And then I'm going to be able to, within the world of Game of Thrones, be a small party of adventurers. I could either do it over here, I could do it in S House, I could do it anywhere. And I could be just going around doing little tournaments, which is an option if you have the Tours and Tournament DLC. And I can just build up my renown as this sort of tournament champion, and then when the realm goes to war, because inevitably it does, right? These things happen. This is a game about dynasties, and they like fighting each other, especially like over here in the Riverlands, they go crazy. When they fight each other, I could be like, oh, I'll offer my services, I'll do whatever. And these are these dynamic stories that you can now create with this mod that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. There's no other game or Game of Thrones game where you can play as all of these people or as your own unique dynasty. You can make your own dynasty too, I didn't mention that. And you can actually increase their power like in a way that feels uniquely your own, with your own characters if you so wish, or with historical characters. It's so much fun. So as you can see, I've loaded into Robert's Rebellion. We have Robert. I'm playing as Robert here, and it has Ned here for Lyanna. So I didn't talk about it actually with the dragons, but when you have dragons, you can actually build up a relationship with them, and you can improve as a rider, and you go into battle with them, you do sieges with them, you do all kinds of stuff. And let's look now at the map. As you can see, we have our wolves, we have our stags, we have the dragons again. So this is the Robert's Rebellion table. Not every bookmark has a table just yet, but we have like Gerald Hightower, Sir Arthur Dane, and it's really, really cool. I love this one. Also, I mean, who doesn't love to see Robert in his armor with his stag crown? He looks absolutely sick. Or Ned with ice, of course. And then you have the Mad King here with his really long beard. And it's also always crazy to me. I always forget this, but he was only 39 years old. Isn't that wild? And then we have Rhaegar, the famous, with his Elia, who he left to go be with Lyanna, and he's got this really bedazzled armor here. He's looking positively fearsome. I didn't even show the Stormland, so I got to come in here now because we got to look at Storm's End, the drum tower up in here, looking real nice. Obviously, the Stepstones are doing their own thing at this point, so nobody really cares. But the reason I came to this one, it's just more familiar for you to look at in the background, and you can see the rebellion happening in real time and what areas are rebelling actively against the king. The war has started. This is at the very beginning of the war. So as you can see, Lord John is up here, John Arryn. He's got his army with our boy Robert right here. They're about to attack Goldtown as they did, I was going to say historically, but canonically in the first game, which is quite cool. So you can obviously play this, and you have a lot of options. Like you can decide maybe Robert doesn't want to be king. Maybe you want to give it to Stannis the Manus, or for some reason you want to give it to Renly. Maybe Robert dies when he duels with Rhaegar. That can happen sometimes. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. But you know, it's just, there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of fun things to be had. And like I said, you don't have to play as a major house. You want to play as the little guy. You want to just play as the Freys and not care about any of this stuff and be the creepy old Walder or whoever else. You can do that. You can do whatever you want. You can choose which aspect you want to be in the Faith of the Seven. You can choose the warrior, because we're this boy. We're gonna choose the warrior. Isn't that fun? There's the reason I want people to play this mod is, one, I obviously make videos on it, so I'm incentivized to do so by law. But also just because, as you can see, Storm's End doesn't have a unique courtroom, so let's go to somebody who does, and we'll talk from there. God, this is so sick. But because the mod has so much love put into it, so much from the, good lord, it's a lot of money, so much put in from the lore, and even the show at times, it's staggering. It is insane. There's actually a sub mod, and let's talk about sub mods now. I'm gonna leave this up in the background. We'll leave it right here, and we're gonna pull up some sub mods for you so you can see what the hell I'm talking about. So as you can see here, I've typed in AGOT, and I have all of these sub mods, and there's just so much that we can look into. We have Armies of Westeros. This adds unique men-at-arms. Men-at-arms are like a thing you use when you fight in wars. We have Submod Core, which I'm assuming this is a utility mod. We have Canon Children, which gives you canon children for the characters. Different crowns of various rulers. Minor house flavor, which basically would just give you more incentive to place houses like the Brackens, the Blackwoods, the Manderleys, the Tarleys, whatever. We have, obviously, music expanded, which I believe adds some music from the show. So if you were somebody like me, you probably wouldn't want to do that because you get copyright, but if you're a player, it's a great mod. Cities of Wonder, this is the mod I was talking about that lets you improve like Harrenhal, like you can rebuild it, or you can actually destroy the wall with like a horn, if I'm remembering correctly. There's a lot of different stuff. There's 15 pages if we scroll down here. 15 pages of submods for just the mod itself. So even with just the mod, there's more to the mod than just the mod. There's so much you can do with this. It's insane. And you're saying to yourself, well, Soul, I have a terrible computer. Well, look at this. What if I type this in? Isn't this crazy? What the hell is AGOT Micro? Oh boy. This is a version, as you can see, it's done this. So AGOT Small and AGOT Micro are basically submods for AGOT. I'm just gonna keep flipping between them because I don't know what to do with my hands. And these make the game easier to run. They take up less RAM, they use less terrain textures, they do a lot of stuff basically to facilitate more play. The creators of this mod know that not everybody has the same level computer, know that not everybody's going to be able to load or to play these games on every rig, but they've created these submods so that you can hopefully get in here and enjoy the mod like everybody else. And really that's what this is all about. It's about enjoying this mod, it's about being in this world, and it's about just having fun in a Game of Thrones the way it was meant to be, in a world made by people who actually care about it. And I hope and pray that you take the time to seriously consider giving this mod a try, giving Crusader Kings 3 a try, because it's a lot of fun. It is literally medieval Sims, or in this case, Game of Thrones Sims. That's the best way I can describe it. Obviously, you're not going to be doing the minute things like cleaning up after you eat or something, but you know, you can make romances, you can plot, you can murder people, you can build up your army, you can do so much stuff, and it's such a beautiful world, and I really hope you give it a try. But that is going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has encouraged at least a couple of you to give this mod a try through my ramblings. But as always, I'm Soul. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can consider becoming a channel member. I haven't said that in a long time, but it's true. I have channel memberships active on the channel, so if you want to be a channel member, give it a look. But I will happily see you in the next one.